have my brother in the building today, AuthorASnorton. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, I'm having a good day, a good week. Like they say, it's good to see you and good to be seen.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming to the studio today. I've been trying to get you up here for a long time, brother. A long time. I do want to tell people that Andrew Sloan, if you don't know him, he's a high-powered author. So I would like you to tell people, how did you become an author, first and foremost, about yourself a little bit, a little background.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks a lot for the warm welcome. So on the author end, my journey really started February of 2017 when my first book did titles Deeper Than Your Deepest Sleep, Thoughts on Love with Joseph Snorton. And it's a poetry book,
Right.
but it's based on conversation with family, looking at the energy of love. And what I did, unlike a lot of poetry, which sometimes can be real abstract,
Right.
what I did at the beginning of each chapter is a portion of the conversation. That way, the reader knows what they're getting ready to dive into, so it's easier to draw connections.
Right.
So that was the first one,
Right.
and then 2018 did 9 Stories of Faith, which is more interview based. As you full well know, all of us are dealing with something.
Right.
Some people deal with something each and every day. So the people who I was able to interview opened up about living with physical health, mental health, life after incarceration, but through the respective lens of their faith. So I interviewed people of Christianity, Hinduism, and Islamic background.
Wow, amazing.
The best practices they use in health and wellness, how they use their support network, how they change their way of thinking, they still live positive lives.
Right.
The third one, Nothing Minor, pivoted on my first year covering minor league baseball back in 2019. So I was very intentional to try and interview as many African-American players as possible. Some of the
Right.
players I interviewed are still playing in the big leagues.
Okay.
Also did a little section on the Negro Southern League Museum based in Birmingham to sprinkle a little bit of history. And to get a different vantage point, I actually interviewed one of the umpire supervisors, because we never pay attention to umpires unless it's a call that you don't like.
Exactly.
And then 2022 was Quotes and Notes, Something's on the Horizon. And I'll be honest, it was really inspired by my reading of As a Man Thinketh. So you full well know
Right.
what you put in your head is going to show up in some way, shape, or form. So what I did is a collection of original quotes, with the exception of one that I borrowed from my grandmother.
Right.
But better than the deep thoughts is the explanation behind it, so people know the logic and rationale.
Right.
But the most important part to me is your space to journal. You may agree with what I said, you may disagree, you might want to go deeper. So it's really part think piece, but the bigger piece is the journal and the reset, and all of us can use that.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
the most recent release, 8 Months of Mercy, is a poetic retelling of an 8-month stretch of life, from going through health-related and a couple other life challenges, but starting to turn the corner. So those are the 5 books I've done. I also have an audiobook series called The Author's Mixtape that I did in collaboration with the Third Level Entertainment Group, Canis Major Digital, and then there's 5 editions of that.
Right.
And the last 2, Krista Kinder co-authored that. And it's basically freestyle, poetry, spoken word, music, where this as a music lover.
Yeah.
Go in the booth, here's a topic, you can't leave until you come up with something.
You know it.
So
That's
those are the moving parts book-wise, and just really fortunate, every book club, bookstore, book festival.
Right.
Just finished doing a festival in Greenville, South Carolina, the Carolinas International Festival, and then on May 9th, from 4 to 6. I know you're going to be out of town, but last year you helped moderate the Authors Talk. So this year I've got Antoine Jones of Majority Greek magazine doing that. So May 9th from 4 to 6.
Right.
If you're 21 and older, that's definitely,
And that's at Morocco.
That's at Maracas. So shouts to the folks at Maracas
Right.
who celebrated a year. They're going strong.
Right.
So May 9th from 4 to 6, Authors Talk, definitely for the 21 and older, because 4 p.m. is when 60 Minutes of Smiles takes place. You can translate, read between the lines, 60 Minutes of Smiles, but get there about 4 o'clock. Enjoy a little bit of 60 Minutes of Smiles, and from like 4:30 to 5:15 we'll do our main talk.
Right.
Then we'll close out with the signing. So if we're done about 6, give or take, and people need to stay for dinner, they need to bounce somewhere, they still got the rest of the day.
Time.
And of course, with it being the day before Mother's Day, looking for that last minute gift, hey, there you have it.
Exactly. Hey, listen, I just love the fact that you took the time out to do something that you love to do, because clearly that's something that you probably wanted to do as a kid, right? You always wanted to be an author. What made you?
I think for me, the love of writing really stemmed from my parents.
Gotcha.
My mom, retired educator, dad, goodness, has advanced degrees.
Right.
And knowing how important on any level, how everything comes together, reading, writing, how it builds up your vocabulary, your critical and creative thinking skills. And last time I checked in this landscape,
Yeah.
critical and creative thinking is really needed. So if that sounds like you need to make sure to put it to use.
Yeah.
And for some, it could be writing a book. For some, their canvas might be painting, or it could be the music that they create.
Poetry, things like that.
Yeah, or it could be, anything. So a lot of that love for writing really extended from home, extended from great teachers, elementary, middle, and high school, some of whom are with us in spirit,
Right.
that really took time to invest, and just fortunate to be able to tap into the writing piece through, being an author, to any of the press and media work, which I think is a great bridge for a great event that we got coming up this weekend. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's just like wonderful to hear that you started back in the day, from your dad, from your mom. That's what you got it from. And you would, as far as writing books, that's something that you love to do. You would say, right?
It's part of it. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people always wonder, what can I do with writing? And it can be a book. Does it have to be? No.
Right.
Like I said earlier, for some it could be music. For some it could be what they do in the creative and performing arts. Some of it can be when you're doing your TED Talk or that business meeting, or on any level, just understanding the bridge between your writing skills, your vocabulary skills, your speaking skills. It doesn't mean and people automatically think it's got to be higher education, but that's not the case. You full well know with whatever field you're in, there's certain vocabulary you have to know, there's certain thinking skills you have to have, because that could be the difference between life and death.
Exactly.
So I think by seeing it in that form, hopefully encourages people to just kind of be motivated, encouraged, inspired, be inquisitive. Well, if this person is using it here, how can I use some of those skill sets, in other spaces and places?
Yeah, and I was gonna say that, like, a lot of times when people do read books, it touches people. You just never know. People come from all different walks of life, and sometimes when you read certain things, you're like, oh man, this really touched my soul. So by you doing that, by you putting those books out, I'm sure there's plenty of people out here that read your books that definitely can understand and feel where you're coming from on certain circumstances.
That's what I hope, and I think anytime, to sum it up, to me, it's about being authentic and being accessible.
Right.
Be open.
Right.
I know that's hard for people to do, and people are like, well, you don't want to tell everything, but you got to tell something.
Yeah.
Because all of us have experienced something.
Exactly.
And then be accessible. Try to make sure you're talking with people versus at them. So regardless if they know more than you about something, you know more than they do about something.
Right.
Just talk with them.
Right.
You get a whole lot more when you talk with and listen to.
Exactly.
And probably the best advice I got on that, it's kind of what we're doing right now. When you talk, I listen.
Right.
When I talk, you listen.
Right.
And if we're talking and listening to get a better understanding, now we better understand each other. Let's see what great things we can do.
Exactly. So where are you originally from?
Grew up. It's a good question. There's two places I can legit claim. I can claim Illinois because that's where I was born.
Okay.
And then we moved before I started elementary school. So Jersey is pretty much elementary, middle, and high school. Yes, sir.
Right. So would you say, when people ask you that, would you say you're from New Jersey since you grew up there?
I lean. I know the folks in Illinois are gonna look at me side-eyed, but I really lean towards Jersey because that's really where I grew up. There's things I do remember about living in Illinois. We were like I was like 4 when we moved.
Right.
So really, when I think about the roots, elementary, middle, and high school, North Jersey, up in Morris County, for elementary school, and then when we moved down to the shore area, that was 7th grade, 8th grade, and then high school.
Okay. So you went to high school in New Jersey.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And then college. Was college?
College, Wake Forest University up in Winston.
Oh, you went to Wake Forest.
Carolina. Yeah,
Hey.
shouts to 336.
Yeah.
That's it. But Winston, that's home of this from music circles. Ninth Wonder. So shouts to
Ninth Wonder. Hey, Chris Paul came from there.
Exactly.
Tim Duncan.
Tim played there. A lot of rich history in the city of Winston. Shouts to Benita Harrison Brown, who's a Winston-Salem native, did the full circle.
Right.
Born in Winston, went to Wake for undergrad, law school.
Right.
She is the first woman to serve as chancellor of Winston-Salem State. So,
wow.
Guy acknowledged Camel City.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what y'all call it, Camel City?
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the nicknames of it,
Right.
But yeah.
Good old North Carolina, right?
Man, look at here. Look, going to the Triad, look here, it's special.
Right.
So I gotta give shouts to the entire Triad. You know, Winston, High Point, Greensboro, Kernersville, Clemens. You know, you name it. There's some good people up there. Some good spaces and places.
Yeah, that's good. So that's good, man. That sounds like a wonderful, you know what I'm saying, journey, you know. You know, you've born in Illinois, then you moved to New Jersey as a kid, you spent most of your time there as a kid, went to high school there, then you went to college in Wake Forest, and then now, guess what? You're a nationally known author. And you probably, you know, I don't know if you thought that. It's funny, I tell people all the time, man, like, even with me as being a DJ, right? You never know what God's plan has for you.
True.
You know?
True.
We have a plan on what we expect that we want to do or what we think we want to do, and your life just kind of just goes a whole different angle.
Man, look, that's a sermon right there. It's like we have plans, but someone else has bigger plans.
Mm-hmm.
And basically someone has bigger plans. Just like this thing right here, I guess is that storage. So yeah, gotta get me yeah, it happens. I'll make it work. You know, capture what we can. But
yeah, so it's like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, life is funny, man, because, you know, you look back, you know, my mom always used to always tell me have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, right? And your plan A don't work, your plan B don't work, your plan C don't work, you stop looking like, I don't know what to do now, right? And
yeah,
lo and behold, guess what? Something works. And then you look back 15, 20, 25 years later, and you're like, man, I remember when I, you know, tried this, or I tried that. I tell young kids all the time,
yes,
you know, what you think that you want to do, you do it, but you never know where you're gonna, you know, end up. You know, you just have to just keep working, keep trying, you know, until you get to where you want to be, you know.
Yeah, like I said, you're delivering some messages too. You gotta work on yours, man. Like for real. Like for real, go ahead, put pen and pad. That should be right up your alley with you being in music and what have you, you know.
No, you're right. I mean, I've been, well, you know, I really want to do a children's book.
Do it.
You know, I really want to do a children's book. Just like, I'm one of those people, like, I like to teach people, like, you know, don't give up. You know what I'm saying? You know, because life could give you obstacles, and life can give you lemons. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, people, it's so hard sometimes for people to keep just pushing and pulling through. So, you know, I wanted to, you know, give the children something, just kind of just show them like, hey, you know, no matter what goes on, just keep going, keep pushing, you know, until you get to where you want to be.
One of the things I said, sometimes you gotta pause and then keep going. Like you do sometimes need to be still to kind of reset and, you know, shake it off and clear your head and slow down the moving parts. And, you know, that ties in, like, you know, one of the books I mentioned with the theme 9 Stories of Faith, from the standpoint of, yeah, we're all going through something on some level.
Yeah.
And, you know, to your point, before you decide to, you know, wreck a city block and, you know, everything's up in smoke or whatever, it's like, you don't have to do exactly what other people are doing, but it gives you options that maybe there's a better way for me to look at this or remap or re-strategize.
Exactly.
And you know, it's almost akin to like people out here listening who play the game of golf. Your competition is the course, it's not other people.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes the biggest barrier, the biggest competition is you.
Yeah,
which
it is.
Kind of tying in with the whole piece with quotes and notes in the book that inspired it, As a Man Thinketh. Like, what you put in your head is going to show up. So you gotta be real careful, real conscious of what you put in your head. And like the elders would say, you know, like when you're little, the elders would go ahead, go sit down somewhere.
Right.
No, but seriously, sometimes it's that simple to go sit down somewhere and get it together. And two things that help me with whatever stuff that I'm dealing with. First thing is look at where you started and look at where you are, and start doing less of, like, we sometimes automatically dive in on what we're not doing. It's almost like we got to start with what we are doing.
Exactly.
And then when you're thinking about what's next, that helps kind of take care of the self-criticism that you have. And the second thing is, as crazy as it sounds, there's somebody out there that would willingly trade places with